Hello and welcome to Mom of 18. Here's a recap of our RV renovation. We purchased the RV January 28th, 2021. We dropped the RV off to begin professional renovation on May 22nd. About 10 days after we purchased the RV, I had been doing some minor demolition. Basically, my goal was to make it look better and work better for us. This particular RV doesn't have a lot of storage, so there were ways that we could add some storage, kind of spruce it up. And in that process, I found a tremendous amount of water damage, enough to know it was way over my head. Dane found Jen and Joe. We met with them. We were so excited. We couldn't wait to drop it off. And then we just kind of had to wait for our time slot. So we dropped it off on May 22nd, knowing that they wouldn't start working on it for about 2 or 3 weeks. The drive there was harrowing. It seems like every time we've driven this RV, there's some sort of storm. We picked it up in a snowstorm and a fog storm. It was awful weather on the drive there and back. And then when we jumped in the car and the RV to drive it to California, it was hailing. It was windy, like 60 miles an hour sideways with hail. It was a terrible start. We were trying to put air in the tires, and it was a little foreboding. Dane's concern with the renovation is that they would look at it and it wouldn't be salvageable. I think I have gone down the Google rabbit hole of RV renovations enough that I wasn't really concerned that it wasn't salvageable. I was concerned that there was so much damage, it wouldn't really be worth putting the money in. I had to keep reminding myself that the purchase price of $21,500 was more justifiable because of the truck value, the actual motor and engine and truck chassis of the RV. And also, there was a $4,000 brand new generator. It's interesting that they threw that in there. I think it was part of the deception. Like, we've upgraded certain things, and here's this great generator, and we put some paint on it. And at first inspection, it was like not a great paint job, but kind of the paint job where it needs one more coat, like it wasn't quite done. And in my mind, I was like, great, we'll add one more coat of paint, some of the color we wanted to change. So this is the perfect canvas. In deeper inspection, it was just a really horrible paint job that needed to be completely sanded and redone. And that was the least of our concerns. This video is Jen and Joe, the RV, at their house as they're sending us weekly video clips of what's happening. One thing that we learned through this process is that the cover up of the water damage was far worse than we thought. I am about as anti-lawsuit as you can possibly get. And I'm telling you right now, if it were possible to sue them for selling us a vehicle that had been so maliciously covered up, the damage had been so maliciously covered up, I would have sued them in a second. That's above and beyond. It's one thing to sell something where you say, yeah, there's been water damage. I actually don't know how bad it is, but these are the two locations of the water damage. It's another thing to go to great lengths to cover it up. And here's the thing about that. They probably spent $1,000 or $2,000, maybe, could have been as little as $500 to throw some paint on, shove styrofoam boards in, put blankets on, do things to cover up the damage. And even if we had known at the time how to check for damage, we would not have known how extensive it was, just that it was there and potentially fairly bad. That meant they could sell the RV for the $21,500 because it looked like it was fine. And we could have no recourse because we bought it in as is condition and inspected it ourselves. Buyer beware. First, there are lots of tips and tricks that you can do to check for water damage. Water damage is very common. But if you are concerned that it's extensive, just to know it's a massive rebuilding project, not just a cut out the water damage, replace real quick and move on. You'll have to decide if it's worth taking on water damage, knowing that once you peel back that first layer, it could be a lot worse.
Aloha. It is only 106 degrees today here in lovely Apple Valley. Normally we don't show videos until maybe weeks later after a project, but why the hell not? So what's not so fun about this one is this part right here. Oh, this is probably the roughest we've ever seen. So sometimes with builds like these, the toughest part is that a lot of the money goes into just rehabbing the RV. So over here, Joe's just starting to get through these walls. We don't know what it looks like over here just yet, but this wall right here looks pretty rough in itself, but much more manageable than the front. Being so hot, what's been really hard too is we've been cutting our days a little short during the noon time because, well, it's difficult to work in this kind of heat. On the bright side is drying everything out that needs to be dried out. And we kind of work on it again later at nighttime.
So here in the back area of the RV, what they actually did is they knew that there was water damage. We knew that this was the one place where there was a small amount of water damage. It was more extensive than any of us had known. They actually removed the interior panel and shoved styrofoam board in between the space and put the panel back and then did some paint. So they actually did things to hide how bad it was. The styrofoam that they stuffed down in this back panel actually started to work the outside paneling because it was too thick.
Guys, so just to give you a little update. This whole thing is supported, and then still waiting on the panels for the walls, but yeah, everything's cool on this. Still gonna build that back one out over here, and then after I build this out, we're ready for paint.
I knew when I was starting to kind of do a little demo that this front cab area was the biggest point of concern. It was far bigger and more damaged than we imagined. You could definitely see some of it due to the demo that I had begun, but when Joe dug in, this portion was really, really awful. It's been completely rebuilt. Almost every single piece of this whole front cab over section has been rebuilt at this point. The good news is we're finding all the water damage and it's all being removed and replaced, and structurally the RV will be completely sound. The bad news is it was so awful to begin with.
So I pretty much took off all the rotted wood on the outside. So basically from this panel over, it's going to be a new sheet. Re-glued this thing on the fascia. As far as the rest of the thing goes, there's a lot of bubbling everywhere. A lot of stuff to do. So we'll make this one here solid, obviously the inside as well, but it's gonna be good.
Hey guys, aloha. So I thought I'd give you guys an update because it's Friday. Okay, exterior wise, the good news is that Joe has redone that internal part, so the frame is definitely much more secure. Maybe you can't tell on the video, but originally there was like a bump out here due to a lot of the bad woods that's been straightened out. So internally there's new wood there as well. Okay, the fun part is look at that peel. So that's something we have to work on still for the framing of this. That's been popped out. As you can see, there's more rotted wood around there.
One thing that we also found as the temperature started to increase, we bought this in the winter, and as it started to get warmer, cooler, and in Reno, we have a 30-degree temperature difference every day. Less so where we actually purchased the vehicle. They have more consistent weather throughout the year. When our weather was changing, the exterior was showing a lot more bubbling. By the time we actually brought it to Jen and Joe, we were really concerned about that. It is a natural delamination process where the glue between the exterior sheeting and the next layer just starts to break down. And that's something that Joe said he would be able to fix. It's a matter of pulling those exterior panels out a little bit and getting the glue kind of down in there to re-laminate it, to glue it back to that second layer, and to check, of course, for water damage.